I received the divorce notice while the desert sun was still beating down on my back. 13 years of marriage, over, in a cold, 2-paragraph email titled, "Let's be adults about this." My name is Michael Harris. I was 42, a staff sergeant with the 101st Airborne, stationed in Helmand Province. It had been 4 months since I'd left home for this latest deployment, and the only message I got from Laura, my wife, was that she'd filed the paperwork, emptied our joint accounts, and moved her new boyfriend Tom Reed into our home in Boise, Idaho. No warning. No call. Just a PDF. I stared at my screen in silence. For a moment, the buzz of the bass faded into nothing. I closed the laptop slowly, stood under the scorching water of the shared showers, got dressed for night patrol, and didn't say a word to anyone. That night, back in the tent, I wrote back a single word: understood. No begging. No blame. No bargaining. Carter, my bunkmate and fellow NCO, glanced at me during chow. "You good, man?" he asked, flipping a page of his book without looking up. "Yeah," I said. "Just stuff back home." He nodded once. That was it. That's the thing about military life, men don't always ask, and they rarely press. But we notice. We always notice. Truth is, I wasn't blindsided. Not entirely. Things had been different for a while. Laura stopped asking about my day, got new passwords on her phone, stayed late at work. She'd started going to the gym, started posting selfies, started talking about how Melissa, one of her friends, was living her best life after divorce. I didn't confront her. I didn't follow her. That's not my way. But I'm not a fool either. I started preparing. I moved my father's old pocket watch and my mother's wedding band into a rented storage unit across town. I redirected a portion of my paycheck to a separate bank. I scanned and saved all our critical documents: marriage license, mortgage, birth certificates. Just in case. You don't serve 15 years in the military without learning to read the signs. And this felt like a storm gathering on the edge of the desert. The last time I saw Laura, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Be safe, okay?" Her voice didn't crack. Her eyes didn't tear up. It felt like saying goodbye to someone at a dentist appointment. And that should have told me everything. But part of me still hoped. I was wrong. What Laura didn't know was that I'd already been building my fallback plan. What Tom didn't know was that I wasn't the man you betray and walk away from without consequences. And what neither of them knew was that I never start fights. But I finished them. 2 weeks after that email, while sitting in the dimly lit mess hall with a plate of cold scrambled eggs, my phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. $86,200 withdrawn. I stared at the screen, the number burning into my eyes. I opened the app. Our joint account was nearly empty. The savings account, the one Laura and I had built over a decade, was wiped clean. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just set my fork down carefully. "Bad news?" Carter asked from across the table. "Something like that," I muttered. That night, under the dull hum of fluorescent lights in the base's phone center, I called the bank. The woman on the line was polite, too polite, like she already knew she was about to ruin my night. Turns out, Laura had been draining our accounts for weeks. Small withdrawals at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. Then, bigger chunks. The day after I deployed, the serious transfers began. By the time I got that email, she'd already taken nearly everything. I leaned against the wall of the phone booth, listening to the hold music play, feeling a strange calm wash over me. It wasn't shock. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. This wasn't just a broken marriage. This was a betrayal, strategic, calculated. And if there's one thing the Army taught me, it's how to plan a counterattack. Later that night, I opened my laptop and logged into the home security system, something Laura probably forgot I still had access to. There he was. Tom Reed. Walking my dog. Drinking from my coffee mug. Wearing my old college sweatshirt like he owned the place. And there was Laura, laughing in the kitchen I had remodeled with my own hands. Funny how betrayal doesn't feel like a stab in the heart. It feels like ice in your veins. I didn't throw my laptop. I didn't punch a wall. I opened a notepad and started writing. Call Daniel Brooks, Army buddy turned lawyer. Review VA loan terms. Check pension security. Verify house deed status. Request emergency leave. This wasn't rage. This was procedure. The next morning at 0500, I sent an encrypted email to Daniel. Need legal assistance. Discreet and urgent. His reply came before sunrise. Call me. Secure line only. By noon, I had a plan. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to give Laura or Tom the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. No, I'd do what soldiers do best: observe, adapt, and execute. Let them think they'd won. For now. 2 months later, my boots touched American soil again. But I didn't go home. I didn't call Laura. I didn't tell anyone I was back, except for one person. I checked into a small motel on the outskirts of Boise under a different name. The kind of place where no one asks questions, and the walls remember nothing. The next morning, I met Daniel Brooks at a quiet diner off the highway. He looked me over as I slid into the booth. "Mike, you look like hell," he said, pushing a cup of black coffee toward me. "Feels about right," I replied, taking a sip. Daniel wasn't just a lawyer. He was a former Army captain who knew how to handle battles, whether in the field or in courtrooms. He slid a thick folder across the table. Everything we talked about. And something extra. I opened the folder. Bank statements. Loan documents. Property records. Then, on top, a refinance application, with my signature. Except it wasn't mine. The middle initial's wrong, I muttered. And the slant's off. Exactly, Daniel nodded. 3 months ago, Laura and Tom refinanced your house, pulled out $310,000. All without your consent. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. She forged my signature. She did, Daniel confirmed. And listed Tom Reed as co-applicant. As if betrayal wasn't enough, they'd tried to steal my future too. What are my options? I asked, voice steady. Daniel gave a thin smile, the kind that says we've got them. Fraud. Forgery. Identity theft. And that's just the beginning. That afternoon, I drove past the house I once called home. Laura's car was parked outside. No sign of Tom's truck. For a moment, I thought about walking up to that door, demanding answers, yelling, letting every ounce of anger loose. But emotion doesn't win wars. Strategy does. Instead, I went straight to the bank. I met with the loan officer who'd processed the fraudulent refinance. I showed my military ID, my real signature, and the forged documents. His face turned pale. "We'll have to escalate this immediately." "I already filed a police report," I replied calmly. That night, Laura texted me for the first time since her email. "Who have you been talking to?" "Tom says someone was asking questions at the bank." I didn't respond. Let the silence make her nervous. The next day, I filed paperwork at the county clerk's office, officially contesting the refinance due to fraud. I registered a legal hold on the property, no sale, no transfer without my approval. 2 days later, Daniel called. They froze the refinance funds. Good. And there's more, he added. Your truck, Tom got pulled over driving it. Suspended license. Cops found prescription pads from Laura's dental office in the glove compartment. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of it settle in. They weren't just stealing from me. They were spiraling into something far worse. This is bigger than personal revenge now, I said quietly. Daniel agreed. We're past that point. I contacted a federal investigator. By the end of the week, I was sitting across from Agent Collins and Agent Miller at the FBI's Spokane field office. They'd been building a case against Tom Reed and Robert Hayes, a shady real estate agent linked to multiple fraudulent property sales, many involving deployed military personnel. Your situation, Mr. Harris, Agent Collins said, might be the key we needed to bring them down. They took my statement, collected every piece of evidence Daniel and I had gathered. Before I left, Agent Miller gave me a warning: don't engage with Laura. Let us handle it. I nodded. I wasn't about to jeopardize this. That weekend, Laura texted again. We need to talk. Please, Michael. I didn't reply. Instead, I parked across from my house and watched. At exactly 10 a.m., a car pulled up. Real estate logo on the side. Robert Hayes stepped out, shaking hands with Tom. They walked inside together. I pulled out my phone, opened the security app. Those cameras I'd installed last year were about to pay off. Live footage showed Tom and Robert discussing sale prices, laughing about how the husband won't be a problem. I forwarded the feed straight to Agent Collins with 2 words: happening now. 30 minutes later, unmarked FBI cars surrounded the property. From my vantage point down the street, I watched as both men were led out in handcuffs. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just felt resolved. This wasn't over yet. But the tide had turned. When the dust settled, Tom Reed and Robert Hayes were behind bars, facing charges that would keep them there for a long time. But there was still one loose end: Laura. I wasn't sure what to feel when Agent Collins called me the next morning. We have Laura Harris at the scene. She's shaken. Is she under arrest? I asked, my voice colder than I expected. Not yet, Collins replied. We're still assessing her involvement. But Michael, this is where your choice matters. My choice? Yes. She claims she didn't know about the larger scheme. Says Tom convinced her you were hiding money and planning to leave her with nothing. I let out a dry laugh. Classic. Always the victim when the walls closed in. What do you want from me? I asked. We need to know if you want to press charges, for the forgery, the theft, everything. I stood by the motel window, looking out at nothing in particular. 13 years of marriage, reduced to legal options and criminal investigations. I thought about the woman I married, bright, ambitious, full of life. And I thought about the woman who laughed in my kitchen while another man wore my clothes. I want what's fair, I finally said. A week later, Daniel negotiated a settlement. Laura agreed to full restitution of the stolen funds. Forfeit any claim to the house. Forfeit rights to my military pension. Sign a written confession regarding the forgery. In exchange, I wouldn't press criminal charges. The divorce was finalized soon after, clean break, no contact. I never saw Laura again. Months passed. I kept in touch with Agent Collins, who informed me that my case had helped expose a multi-state operation targeting military families. 11 other victims were identified. The FBI credited me with providing the evidence that broke it open. One afternoon, Collins called. Tom Reed got 8 years. Robert Hayes got 12. Thought you'd want to know. I appreciate it, I said, but there was no triumph in my voice. Because justice isn't victory. It's just balance. On the day I signed the final divorce papers, I received a text from Laura. I never meant for things to end like this. I stared at it for a while, then deleted it without replying. There was nothing left to say. I sold the house soon after. Too many ghosts in those walls. Too much betrayal soaked into the foundation. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside Missoula, Montana. 10 acres of quiet. A creek in the backyard. No neighbors for miles. I retired early from the army, 20 years was enough. Got a dog. A German Shepherd I named Ranger. Started doing carpentry work for locals. Simple life. Honest life. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from a woman in Texas. Her husband, a Navy officer, had been deployed when Tom and Robert tried to run the same scheme on her. "The FBI told me about you," she wrote. "You don't know me, but you saved my family's home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to give up." I read it twice, then pinned it to the fridge. Some days, when the silence felt too heavy, I'd look at that letter and remind myself. I didn't just fight for me. I fought for people who didn't even know they needed a soldier on their side. Last I heard, Laura had moved back to Oregon. Working at a dental office. Starting over. I didn't hate her. I didn't really feel anything anymore. She made her choices. And I made mine. Now, my days were filled with sawdust, the sound of the creek, and the quiet companionship of Ranger. No more battles. No more betrayals. Just peace. And sometimes, that's the greatest revenge of all. Life doesn't always give you the ending you expect. Sometimes, it gives you something better, clarity, peace, and a reminder of who you really are when everything else is stripped away. I didn't choose betrayal. I didn't choose to be part of a conspiracy case. But I chose how I responded. And in the end, that made all the difference. Have you ever faced a moment where walking away felt easier, but standing your ground made you stronger? Share your story or thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you found strength in unexpected places. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more true stories of resilience, justice, and the quiet victories that shape us. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well.